I'm Diego Cordovez with Adam Schoenfeld. Welcome to The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker. And John D'Agostino joins us today.
J-Dags.
J-Dags, burst on the scene, playing Phil Ivey heads up at Turning Stone. And a guy who is a lot more than a tournament player, a guy who plays all the games. And
he's a craftsman.
Super high limits.
Craftsman to mix games.
And very sensible, smart guy, very interesting guy to talk to. So you started playing on the East Coast and playing all the games, and then I'd see you playing online on Full Tilt, especially in the mixed games, and not just the Hold'em. How do you compare the two? What adjustments did you have to make from the live to the online, or is it the same things going on?
Similar, I think. I don't know. Maybe it's a little different. I used to think people bluffed more on the internet because they don't have to actually look at you, but in the higher limits, I don't think it's any different.
You kept calling them down.
I actually think some people play better on the internet because they're playing so many tables that they just don't play those marginal hands. Like David Benjamin plays so much better online, like a horse game, because he's just playing 6 PLO tables, so he's not even paying. Actually, he's probably playing worse in the studs because he can't see the up cards, but he doesn't play as many bad hands to start. He plays tighter.
I thought that online.
I played in that. For all the only tournament I played so far was that 8-game tournament.
Yeah, the super mixed games.
He played 3 kings in Raz. It's impossible. He defended 3 king bring-ins in Raz when like a 7 raised and like a 6 called.
Right.
Like there was no way it was a steal. Right. Someone had a hand.
And it wasn't heads up.
And he was just like, I'll just defend with my king. The king 6-4. Like that's a big hand.
Right.
He's a complete idiot.
If they both keep missing.
Yeah. If I just go like perfect.
But he's not really an idiot. But he just didn't care.
He's just bored. I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
he's capable of playing great, but I still think Raz and Stud 8 are better his 2 worst games.
Mm-hmm.
He plays PLO. No Limit is his worst game. Never mind, that's not even close. No Limit is his worst game. But PLO he plays great. He just has the same swings as a psychopath.
If he just played PLO, he'd probably be as rich as Guy Lalibert.
Maybe.
I do think there's a lot to the fact that online it does help tilters because some guys really do just get bored and now they're just playing hands they shouldn't play.
Yeah.
Online, at least from the starting hand requirements, which in limit is important, they are much more
disciplined. I find it tougher to tell when someone's tilting online, because you can't see them. When you're playing live, sometimes you can see someone like losing their mind, but online, when they play real bad, sometimes I look back, at first I'm like, maybe he's just doing something right, but because you can't really tell if he's just completely losing his mind.
Well, one of the great indicators online is the chat tilter, as I call it.
Oh, that doesn't happen too much in the...
Not in the big...
Yeah.
But in the limits I play, I get the chat tilters all the time, and in the tournaments also. And that's when I always take that note, because to me, someone who berates someone else in chat really can't be a good player.
Yeah, just losing their mind.
Yeah.
No, I've been playing Richard Brody heads up a lot lately, Limit Hold'em, and I'll never quit him, ever. But he's a nice guy, but he has so much money, who cares? Sometimes if you beat someone like 30 times in a row, but him, I don't care, because it doesn't make, if he loses like $1 million, it won't make any difference.
Right, sure.
But he was so tilted. He goes, one day he's like, do you know how, he just starts typing LOL like every hand I win after one hand, sometimes it's a kind of a bad beat, but one hand, in the middle of his tirade, all I did was raise the button with King Jack. He called, the flop came King High, and I just bet, he called, he had Ace 8, just paid me off with Ace High, and then he went off on how lucky I am. I'm like, did I do anything remotely wrong here? He was just LOL, just going nuts.
By the way,
it's you're ahead of me 6 times more than anyone I've ever played against. I'm like, you must play some bad players. I'm not even that good.
I will never use the phrase in writing LOL.
Right.
If on the rare occasion, because it's never true that someone is laughing out loud at the computer, the 1 in a million times where someone will send me an IM that's funny, I'll say, I'm actually laughing, because I won't use LOL just because it's so hackneyed.
These guys, for regular beats, then they go to rolling on the floor,
or
laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
And that's just for a flush draw getting completed against them, as opposed to someone out flopping them.
If I have a note on a guy that is a chat tilter, I will intentionally take some shots trying to beat him with a ridiculous hand, because then I know he's going to go off.
You have the implied tilt.
This happened in a tournament last night. I checked the guy's note, and I had no memory of playing him, so this must have been from months ago, and it said chat tiltomatic. So I feel sort of bad for doing this. So he lost. He had pocket kings against someone else's ace king, and now he starts going off in the chat box. And it was a perfectly standard play by both guys. Right. It's just unlucky for the ace king guy that he was against kings.
But it's not like the other guys.
So I took a couple of subtly veiled shots. He's like, typical. I was like, yeah, I bet that happens 30% of the time on here. And he just goes off on that. He was out of the tournament shortly thereafter.
I mean, I see you playing, the much bigger games sometimes, 1,000, 2,000, or 500, 1,000. Is it the same interactions there at times? Because this seems to be more typical of the lower stakes where people are
People go
writing all
crazy,
this
you mean?
kind of crazy chat,
That
rude
doesn't
chat.
happen up there.
You don't
almost
get
never.
any of that.
Unless it's Mike.
He does it usually.
Like every single time Mike loses a hand, it's just the most unlucky guy who's ever played poker. It's like, Mike, you're not going to win every hand your whole life.
Mike gets into it with the observers. I've always felt that
Mike's just a
if
buffoon.
another player,
And I like him, but he's
Yeah.
just such a doofus.
if another
He's already
player
doofus,
is
though.
doing something or engaging in the chat, I might, the guys in the
Usually,
game
I have
has
my
money.
chat turned off 99% of the
Do
time.
you?
I don't
feel-
blame you.
I
at the
used to
limits- at the limits you're playing.
always chat with people, but first of all, it's like
You can't chat
it
with an observer.
especially if you're stuck and you're a little aggravated. All that has to happen is you lose, and they're like, "Wow, you suck! How could you
Yeah.
play that hand so bad?"
Right.
You have no idea what's
You're a
going
pro.
on. Yeah,
I mean, what a lot of the rail, I call them rail, I'm starting my own magazine, Rail Aficionado. A lot of what the rail doesn't understand is
Is
that
poker?
there are times where you have to gamble. So
Yeah.
now, but any time a red pro gets it in with the worst of it,
Yeah.
and it could be just barely the worst of it, it could be where you moved in, you had
Sites
tons of
rigged.
equity that they would fold, but they happen to have the top of the
Yeah.
range that time. You suck. Pros suck.
yeah.
And
But if you ever actually win there, then it's like the site's rigged towards
Yeah.
the pro. It's
Right,
completely rigged.
No
Even people who
surprise.
play with you say that.
Yeah.
Like I would like.
Well, I say it because it's fun, but I
yeah.
don't believe it.
Yeah.
I'd say it just to tilt them, just to
Yeah.
make them start believing
Yeah.
that. But it's like they're like, always 90% of the time,
Yeah.
the red pro wins the. the
But
coin flip.
what we have to remember is that those vocal idiots are still a tiny percentage of the people who are observing,
Yeah.
a tiny percentage of the rail. A lot of the people on the rail,
Yeah, don't say anything.
they're trying to learn.
Yeah.
They are learning, and so that's why I don't blame you for not chatting at the super high limits because you have to concentrate and there's so much at stake. But if I'm playing mid limit or a tournament, I'll chat with the rail if they engage me. But then if they're the very small percentage they're idiots, I just stop.
Well, that's the other thing. I used to chat a lot, and then if someone was aggravating, I would block them.
Right.
Then I had like a list of like 700 people who were blocked.
Just too many. Yeah, I feel if someone has their money out there, like I was playing last night, and someone in the game was asking me, did I play that right, or what do you think? And I feel like, hey, they've stepped up and put their money on the table. They deserve the courtesy of,
it's
of my
play
comment or
chat.
whatever. But when an observer
Yes.
comes along and they're like, who the hell are you? How
Yeah.
can you play that? It's like, well, step up to the table and then
goodbye, I'm not
we'll
interested
talk.
in you.
I have a
Yeah.
couple of stalkers, but they're they love me and irrationally so. So they go to Diego's table and they were chatting. And they said, one guy claimed that the two best players in the world. Who were his two?
David Benjamin and Adam Schoenfeld. He said,
Right, and I'm like, I think a few other guys might feel like there's.
there might be a couple in between.
You
Yeah,
might be
yeah.
like fifth, but
Yeah, right.
maybe
Right.
probably not second.
Let's not be
They're
ridiculous.
forgetting two or three
Yeah.
in between the two.
There might be at least one black fellow who might play a little bit better than you. But
At least one. Yeah.
Did you play a lot against Phil coming up in the ranks? or not?
enough. Yeah, I used to play him a lot. I used to have a very big ego. I've learned it's not as important, especially with a family now. I don't challenge myself as much as I used to. There's a lot of bad players. I used to play Patrick all the time and David, and I was up so much on David the first few months of playing in PLO, and then finally it balanced out. But I used to play Phil a lot.
Heads up.
Yeah, because in No Limit, I really thought No Limit Online, I really thought I had an edge on him for a while. I think I probably did. I don't know, because he wasn't playing well at all online. That was just kind of before we got the super high limits on there.
Right.
Like when we had 50, 100 No Limit, I was crushing him because I don't think he even cared.
Right, you have to get to that tipping point where he cares,
Where
and Phil.
but now he has so much money. I don't even think our limits on there are even big enough that he cares now.
John, are you going to play the 50K horse?
Yes.
What-
The only
Are you
tournaments
going to
I'll
win the
play?
50K horse?
Probably not, but I hope to.
And you're capable of it.
No, but there are a lot of guys who
All
are
you
going to
gotta
play
do is
all the
run.
games.
All you gotta do is run really good. Play good, run good, and hope to
Does
win.
it strike you that John looks like a young Robert De Niro? Have you gotten that before?
No.
You're-
But I have been told by at least 10 people that they didn't even recognize me because I got rid of the goatee and
Yeah.
I used to spike my hair. Now it's
Right.
just like this.
Now it's
People
a
are
modified
I
Caesar.
don't even so like Eric said, he goes, John? He's like, I didn't even know that was you.
It's true.
A couple people have said
It's
it.
true. Well, when I was asking about Phil, the first time that you came to prominence was when you were at Turning Stone in that tournament that they showed all the hole cards, all the hands live. And you ended up heads up against Phil Ivey. And I thought you played really well.
Oh, you played great.
He ended up winning, but I'd never seen you, or you'd always been out on the East Coast.
No one
and
had really
I think
seen
very
it.
few people knew you, and you really gave a good accounting of yourself. But had you played with Phil before that, or was that your first experience with him?
I think probably at that point that had been the first time. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I may have played one other time with him briefly, but I think that was the first time.
You seemed so super cool during that. Were you nervous? I would have been dying playing Phil Heads Up for a lot of money.
I don't know. I mean, well, once you get to that point, I mean, you already have
Right,
enough
you're locked
locked
up,
up, and
right.
I had already been playing fairly high. So I mean, the money mattered, but it wasn't like we were playing for $2 million or anything crazy.
Right,
so
right.
it mattered, but I just wanted to win at that point.
Yeah,
it was
right.
fun.
Now they show. I mean, now people are used to the fact that they show the whole cards on TV, but they really don't in the sense that they only show the key hands. So you're missing a lot of context. It's not like you're really getting a line on people's play because you're
Yeah.
only seeing when they go all
Yeah,
in or
they show,
making
like-
a big bluff.
Yeah.
But this was really kind of a crazy spectacle where they show every single hand,
Yeah.
and you really get a feel for how people play, what hand, what their
And
hand
you also got
selection
to
is or
feel for
whatever.
the flow of the match, how it was.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
now, yeah,
But was
like-
that unnerving in the sense that your game is so revealed, so exposed? Did you even think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want everything, all tournaments. I mean,
That would
I
be
wish
a good
all
regular
tournaments were like
practice.
that because I think the ratings would be way higher. I heard their ratings are terrible now because all they do is show the hand, and then the button's on the same guy the next hand they show. And
Yeah.
one guy who had 1.4 million has 600 now, but they haven't shown a hand, and no one has any idea what's going on.
And they're all in.
Then everyone goes, "How could he move in there with the 2 9s? It was terrible." When you have no idea what's going on, and that was I mean. That was a great tournament.
Have you read
It
Dan
was great
Harrington?
to watch. It was great to rewatch because you got to see. I got to see all
Yeah.
of his cards.
Yeah.
I've got it saved on DVD.
Dan Harrington has analyzed a lot of the heads-up match, if not
Yeah.
all of it. Have you read that?
I read a little of it. Yeah, it seemed like it was pretty spot on. I don't agree with the one thing he said that I don't agree with is I don't think you should play every hand heads up. He said you should never fold on the button. Heads up. I don't against certain opponents who are gonna raise a lot
Right.
unless you're gonna start limping with all your big hands too to mix
Right,
it up.
right.
I don't agree. I think there's some hands you should just fold against a real weak opponent. Maybe it's different.
It
but-
seems like that's exploitable. The thing is, theoretically, that's correct. But once you start doing it against somebody who has a brain,
Yeah.
they're going to take advantage of it. Like a
Yeah.
lot of things in poker where you
Yeah,
you have to think
theoretically,
the
yes.
worst
If
of
I
it
was
at
limping on
times.
the button and then we're just running it out, obviously you would never fold.
You
but
love it.
when you actually have to play a hand like the deuce 8 offsuit after the flop, I mean, so what you flop a deuce now, theoretically you have the best hand, but you can't. It's tough to play it.
And you're up against somebody who realizes you're playing every
Yeah.
hand and who starts to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
So,
and you don't want to start playing just awful hands against Phil.
No.
Against anyone good because you're just always going to be in bad spots. You're never going to flop. You're going to keep flopping like second or third pair or nothing, and then it's just.
and even
you
if
know.
even if they're not re-raising before, actually, I think the best exploitative strategy is if you're playing every hand on the button, they bet into you on the flop every single time, figuring you're going to miss and
Yeah.
and then take it from there. But you're exposing yourself quite a bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, it gets into head games, then you can start. But again, Phil's not exactly the guy I wanted to play too many head games with, especially not at that point. I wasn't.
Well, and he already had a lot of experience, a lot more in that setting
Yeah.
than you did.
Yeah, that was a while ago. Now, it might be a little different with that type of stuff. But back then, I was just trying to hope to run good, to be honest with you.
Back then, what had been your background? Playing No Limit or
No,
Limit?
I was, I think that was about 6 months after I turned 21. I don't think I had ever really played No Limit until I turned 21. I always played HOE or Hose, and then all limit games. And then when I turned 21, I started playing on the internet, and then I started playing No Limit. So
Yeah,
I had
people
very
don't-
little experience.
I think people don't realize you're still 25. It seems like you've been around forever.
That's-
Now you're already like the next generation. Now there's like a bunch of
Now there's a
real
bunch
young
of
guys coming
16-year-olds who are
along
dominating
who
the
think
world.
you're like
Right.
an old timer.
Old man D'Agostino, he wouldn't play this hand, but I raised with it.
I always say that too. I'm like, back when I was younger, I would have played this hand, but now
Right,
I've been
well.
around so long, it's just not worth it.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Now that you're a
I
fan.
hope I never get to that age.
Yeah.
now,
What are you, about 35?
About 44. Thank you.
44?
Yes. Thank you.
John can't even imagine getting to be
What
that
does
age.
that mean?
I got the walker.
It's like your dad.
Yeah.
Now that you're a family man with another baby on the way, I mean, does that have an impact on your playing, either the limits you play or the games you play or your playing style itself? Because theoretically it shouldn't, but I think everyone goes through
Well,
that.
it definitely doesn't have an effect on my playing style. Like, once I get in the game, I'm going to play my style, even if the swings are really big. But it does affect, my game selection a lot more. Like I said, when I was younger, I used to play anyone, anytime. Because I wanted to prove I was the best or just didn't care. But, yeah, now, I mean, you have bills.
And that's a good way to learn.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
helps,
as well.
helps you get better.
I mean,
but
in the
now
long run.
with a family, you just can't afford to go broke, or you have to, bills are much. Family's
Baby
much
has to
more
eat
important.
every day.
Yeah. So now you kind of look for better spots. I don't play certain people heads up anymore. It's just not worth it.
John, we know you got a lot of tournaments to go play and win, so we're going to let you go, but thanks for coming by, joining us on The Scoop, and talking about all your experiences in the online world and in the World Series. And thanks for joining us on The Scoop, brought to you by Full Tilt Poker, and write us at thescoop@cardplayer.com.
2 bracelets. Awesome.
Well, you know, these aren't easy to win. I remember this one like it was yesterday. My opponent had me down to my left. Sorry. Anyway, it's down to my last few chips. So I had to call.
We play at FullTiltPoker.com.